After reading the title of another story on Creepy Encounters, I remembered a memory I must have subconsciously suppressed due to how scary it was for me as a child. My mom had just taken me and my sister out to the dentist. We used to live in a remote village, so we had to travel about 10 miles and by bus as my mom didn't drive at the time. We were patiently waiting when this old guy walks up and sits down next to me and my sister. My mom immediately got creepy vibes and made an excuse for us to move. The guy then proceeds to start a conversation, exclaiming how beautiful your daughters are. He asked what bus we were getting as it was running late, about 30 minutes late. Wouldn't it be funny if it didn't turn up and you were stuck here all night? And then he proceeded to offer us a place to stay that night, describing his house, and I think he even offered to let us have his room and said he'd have the sofa. My mom immediately shut that idea down. She kept trying to talk to us to avoid conversation but kept interrupting. He then asked my mom if she could drive, saying he had a car he didn't use back at his house and that we could go back there and she could use it. At this point, my mom got even more creeped out and pretended to get a text. She told the guy a family member was picking us up around the corner and she marched me and my sister away. She was going to make us walk the 10 plus miles home if it meant being away from that guy. The bus went past us on the road and didn't stop, but luckily a friend drove past, recognized our mom, and gave us a ride. This happened several years ago. I was a naive 19-year-old university student. A bus company had just returned from being on strike, and as a special promotion, were letting people ride free for 2 weeks. I saw myself as adventurous and took this as an invitation to go randomly riding all over the city. One of my little adventures was a bit scary. I was at a bus stop in some random, unfamiliar part of the city. A man was next to me. We were the only ones there. I like to be nice to strangers, so I engaged in conversation. Things escalated quickly. The man started telling me that he was some sort of crime boss, that he was aiming to kill a certain person. He said something along the lines of, "I don't like when I have to kill them, but when they cause trouble, sometimes I gotta do what I gotta do." I was afraid he would hurt me if I upset him, so I politely nodded along as though what he was saying was completely ordinary. Lucky for me, his bus soon arrived. He got on Route 2 to a place called Pleasantville. To this day, I don't know if he was a legitimate gang member or just delusional. I'm not sure what part of the city I was in, nor do I know if he killed his intended target or anybody else. But to this day, I avoid Route 2 to Pleasantville. Technically, this happened to my mom, but my fiance and I were both with her. We were helping her shop at the Dollar Tree. My mom's one of those DT Hall YouTube fanatics. It's pretty adorable. Anyway, we were leaving for the bus across the street, all carrying bags full of our collective haul, and we saw in the distance a bus so full of stuff. Mainly junk, like stray flip-flops and drinking glasses, with camping gear and furniture and boxes surrounding. My mom, Brenda, made a comment about the old Volkswagen van, and we all chuckled. When we got closer, she commented to the man that his wheels looked kinda strained with the weight, and he stopped her to clarify as he hadn't heard. This initially didn't seem too terribly concerning. He just didn't hear. She said it again, and he as well chuckled, and then tried to engage conversation as my fiance and I were starting to cross the street. He commented on her hair and asked who did it. When she told him, he seemed very confused and thought she was talking about my fiance. We're gay. So she corrected him and called me the one in the teal shirt. He nodded and left his van door open to follow us to the curb. He kept stopping my mom from crossing, and I didn't want to leave her, but I was trying to make it clear we didn't have time. We take the bus, we don't have a car. We didn't want to miss it with all this stuff. He just wouldn't take the hint. He said something like, "So you go by teal?" My mom said no. gave her name, and tried to walk away toward us. But he followed again. He kept talking, and when he finally made it across the street, he was still talking. His car door still open in the store parking lot. I couldn't believe this guy. So we're across the street now, and I'm lingering ahead, trying to hint that he needs to leave, when he asks my mom, or the group, it's undetermined, whether she or we ever think about God. We're not particularly religious people, so my mother said not really. We're not interested in talking about religion. He seemed to understand, but then just plowed right on through, continuing about religion and God. I don't know half the shit he said. It was just all really religious and frustrating. When that didn't seem to get a response, he asked where we were going. We said we were going home. I mean, this guy followed us across the street and totally ignored all the boundaries we set, even if they weren't all verbal. You gotta realize that some people don't want to talk about God in the middle of the street. He basically told my mom she was beautiful and made comments about God the whole way to the bus stop. And then he just sits down and keeps trying to talk to us while his van is wide open across the street. I was on the phone trying to avoid eye contact. I have horrible anxiety and PTSD. The guy just won't leave us alone. He's still talking about religion. And my mom finally says she doesn't like talking about Jesus's work. She only likes following it. So then he starts repeating how his dad always did that, and he was never quite the same. He loved telling people about the good Lord. He asked my mother, "Do you have more than 3 kids?" And this is the creepy part. My mom has exactly 3 kids. Me, my younger brother, and my older sister. Neither of my siblings were present. She only mentioned one of them. Then he guessed her age, completely out of the blue. None of us confirmed it. She told him she wasn't interested in sharing her age, but he wouldn't stop guessing more random numbers. I don't know, it was just weird. She stopped replying with no and just went silent. So he made a few more comments about her beauty and then stood up. I was looking down at my phone, legs crossed on the bench, very reserved, uncomfortable. This motherfucker leans so far over, his head is upside down, so he can force eye contact and tell me I have a great mother and that I'm so lucky, and doesn't move until I look at him and say, "Yep." Finally, the bus comes. He shakes my fiance's hand as we're getting on the bus and says, "It's so nice you can be in his life as a friend." To which my guy says, "I'm his fiance, actually." The guy nods and chuckles and heads back toward his van. When we passed, he was nowhere in sight, but the van was closed. I am 22 years old now, and this happened back when I was just 5 years old. Even though it was so long ago, I can remember it so vividly. My older brother, 1 year older than me, and I had just been dropped off at our bus stop by the school bus after school. We lived in a shitty trailer park in Virginia. All the kids had parents waiting for them at the bus stop. My brother and I did not. Our mother never knew or cared where we were, unfortunately. We stayed around the bus stop playing with sticks, and the other kids and the bus quickly dissipated. A few minutes passed with us playing with our sticks when I hear a man's voice say, "Hey!" I look up, and there is now an old blue truck in front of us on the road. The man inside says, "I'm looking for my dog. Have you seen him?" Me, being a very big animal-loving kid, was immediately captured by the fact a dog could be lost. I told him, "No, we haven't seen a dog." The man said, "Oh, well, maybe if you come help me look for him, we can find him. I'll give you some candy if you help me." Yes, I know the classic candy offer. I, for some reason, was never coached on the stranger danger. I began walking around the front of the truck to get into the passenger side when all of a sudden my arm was jerked very hard by my brother, who screamed, "Run!" and pulled me and ran us all the way down the side road where we hid behind a dumpster. The old truck immediately sped off as soon as my brother made us run away. If my brother wasn't there that day, I would have absolutely gotten into that car and surely surely never be seen again. We waited a few minutes behind the dumpster and then ran the rest of the way home. I'm not entirely sure if this story belongs here, but I hope myself or any other little kids never meet that man again.